Good morning, Hope Warriors. You are here. My name is Faye DeMeyer-Anspaugh, and you have landed on Hope Warriors, the FayDay show, where we're united around the idea of hope, healing, and wholeness. Hope Warrior is brought to you today by The Rec in Kaiser, Oregon, a great place for family bowling, event gathering, and youth mentoring. Also by Nolan Productions, Stella Dinwiddie Insurance, and by our own Donna Kreitzberg Consulting. And today by Flying High Hat Company, Jessica and Sean. So we're just excited to have all these sponsors. It's just fantastic. I'm joined today by my distinguished guest, Donna Kreitzberg. Hi, Donna. Welcome.
Thank you.
Whom I want to introduce properly in just a moment, after letting you know that what our topic is and why we're here. If you'd like to sponsor the Hope Warrior Show, please leave a comment below, and please be sure to like and subscribe. The new podcast lands every 2 weeks. So we're excited to have you here. This is not our first rodeo. Most of you know me from radio, but we're on our own podcast now. Our topic today with Donna is school choice, parents' rights, and a surefire way to make this happen. That has not happened in Oregon yet, okay? Why are we bothering, you ask? Well, in Oregon is the 35th state in many educational domains and much lower in others. Due to reports across the nation of failed schools, this is a very timely discussion. So today we want to talk about why it's important that education be discussed in the first place, and why do we want to be anywhere besides the bottom of the barrel. Number one, we're creating citizens. We're creating workers for the community. We're creating parents. We're creating children that are going through school. There's a purpose to school. And so I'm excited to introduce my guest. My guest is today is one such person who can help us as Oregon parents and grandparents, in my case, get our children to the education that they deserve. A more prepared citizen, a more prepared worker, a parent, and a contributing member of society. So Donna Kreitzberg is a retired real estate broker, a certified public accountant, small business owner, and business tax attorney. With a master's in management and finance, Ms. Kreitzberg spent several years reading legislation, case law from across America concerning school choice. Ms. Kreitzberg then spent time with school choice advocates, policy folks, legislators, constitutional attorneys, and think tank directors from about 20 states, gathering materials to use to draft 2 school choice amendments. Using the best features of existing legislation and think tank model legislation, Ms. Kreitzberg drafted the Open Oregon Amendment and School Choice Amendment of the people, by the people, for the people effort. That's what it was for. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
We have so much to talk about. I mean, I interviewed you back in 2023, March of 23, and I was excited about this then. And then that June, I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so I was ready to launch, right? Because in September, we were just going to rock this thing, get petitions out there. So tell us a little bit about where things are and what people can do. I just want to set you free. Go.
Oh, well, thank you. So we have come all through the state program, and now we're out gathering signatures. We have to get 160,000 valid signatures on each of the 2 measures. We have about 33,000 on each. So we still have a mountain of signatures yet to gather. But the good news is everybody's now learning about it. We're doing a big advertising push. We've taken up the donations that we've received from folks, which have been wonderful. We're using that to turn it into signatures. So we have digital ads, text messages, phone calls, mailers, all those sort of things to inform folks that, hey, we have these 2 measures. We are now gathering signatures. Our deadline is fast approaching. It's June 30th.
Oh, wow.
So we have about 43 days to get this mountain of signatures. But once people learn about it and they think, oh, well, that makes sense. Parents love their children. They should be able to choose the school environment for them, especially the environment that works best. So most people are very willing to sign these signatures or sign these petitions.
And so are you seeing across political lines for this?
Oh, yes. Both in Oregon and nationally, it pulls across all affiliations because it's not political. It's not partisan. No. It's do parents love their children? Of course they do. Do they want the best for them? Of course they do. So school choice enables parents to choose the learning environment that works best for the child. Because the whole point of everything that we're doing, when we pass the hat around and we put money in as taxes, a portion of that goes to education. Well, that money needs to actually get to the child in the environment that helps the child. So school choice enables parents who know the learning needs and the struggles of their children to decide, wow, I think this child should be in a public charter school, but maybe this one needs to be homeschooled, or this one needs to be in a private, or this one needs to be in the district. And maybe not even the district that they're living in, but a different district. So parents can then choose among all the different learning environments to find the one where their child will excel. So the money needs to be following these children to that learning environment so that we do what we're supposed to be doing, which is give these kids the knowledge and skill set to succeed in life.
You're not trying to close down the public school system, right?
No, actually, this supports it and stabilizes it.
Exactly. So what I really love about these amendments, and I want to talk about each one of them in their own respective right, is that it is an enhancement to maybe what has left some parents and children out of good education.
Right.
It brings the possibility for a parent who, as you said, loves their child, wants the best for them, to say, I'm not getting the best education in this neighborhood because I really can't afford to go to a private school, but there might be a neighborhood where I could get a better education for my student, so I would like to register them there. And that money follows the student. Is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell us about the amendments and how you wisely separated them out, okay?
Sure. Well, we have the two. The first one is open enrollment, and the other one is school choice. The open enrollment, we actually had open enrollment legislatively here from 2012 to 2019, and it was working well, but the legislature let it lapse, and so we didn't have it again. So then we were back to the system of you were assigned to a public school based on where you live. But that might not be the best fit for your child.
Right.
But then you had to get permission from the school you were assigned to and permission to where you wanted to go, and oftentimes you couldn't achieve that. So with open enrollment, it says, hey, let's just make this common sense. It shouldn't matter where you live. It shouldn't matter which district is, that you're in. It should be, wait, Camden, I need to change that. Okay, so with open enrollment, it shouldn't matter where you live. The parent should be able to determine which school is best. So you could be assigned over here, but find that maybe because the parent works in a different district, or that's where their babysitter is, or any a number of different reasons, it's better for the child to be in the different district. So with open enrollment, the parent is able to choose any district school and any charter school. And if the one they want to go to has available space, then the school has to take the child. And it makes sense that way because we shouldn't have artificial boundaries. We shouldn't say, I'm going to discriminate because your parents aren't rich enough to move into this neighborhood, or you're not able to go over here even though it's just across the street. So we want to remove those boundaries. So open enrollment just says, if you want to stay in a public system, you can choose any public charter or district school. It's wonderful.
Well, and the reason I like what you're doing is because a lot of people assume that if anyone is trying to change schools, they're actually trying to get rid of public school. And that is not the case. We pay our taxes for public school. We want to see children flourish in public school. We would love that. I think what you're doing, too, just on the school choice piece, is you're creating an environment where schools begin to be better. They begin to be a school where somebody wants to be. Am I right? Does that raise the bar?
It does. And it also allows schools to have individual personalities. So there could be District A school that wants to be focused on STEM, or a District B school wants to focus on music. So they can just organically change into what they want to be, and then that lets them market themselves that way into a parent.
Beautiful.
And with open enrollment, it won't matter where the parent lives. They can say, oh, I really want my child to be, they're musically gifted. I want them to go to that school. And so it opens the doors then for the parents to have their child go there. So it's wonderful. And it helps the teachers too, because the teachers are freely able to move within the system. And so they aren't necessarily assigned to a particular school. They can move to a school that now has this greater demand for teachers.
Right. And I think of ESL as another choice, where people really need to learn a second language, and then a school focuses on that. That's their gifting. Everyone's gifted in it as teachers. And now you're going to get a better dual language environment. Am I right?
Right.
So it's not exclusive, it's inclusive.
Right. It lets the parent decide which is the best environment and lets the school organically change to become something that they can then market themselves as.
So I have a question about that, just for fun. If I have a child maybe through the grade school years that I chose a a school, and then junior high, it looks like another school would be better in another district, can make that choice, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You see, so you're not kind of stuck. Am I right?
No, the whole idea is there's no more boundaries. So the only indicator is, does the school you want your child to go to have room?
Okay, so that just the school, the actual name is really a good name because it's telling people you have choice. And who doesn't want choice?
Well, exactly. Parents right now are able to choose the doctor, the food, the tennis shoes. Mm-hmm. So it's basically then follows that they should be able to choose the school that will work best for the child.
Yeah.
So yes, you could be assigned to one school, and for elementary, maybe the assigned school works, but when you get to high school, for whatever reason, the child needs to go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So it's very open and fluid, and it's not a one-time choice either.
Right.
You could have a situation where you want to go to this district school for a while, but then for whatever reason, you want to go somewhere else because of the learning needs of the child.
Well, I'll give you a reason. I had foster a child, right? And previously in another school, he had made bad choices, and he wanted to start fresh. His heart wanted to start fresh. That would be a reason. Just to start fresh.
Yeah, just to get a clean slate.
Brand new environment, brand new everything, and then having a conversation with the new school and saying this youth wants to start fresh. They realize they've made mistakes and have him articulate it. It was a booming success. He graduated.
Wonderful.
And we walked, and, it was fantastic. So that's an example for me as a mom of a son.
Yes, absolutely.
Who's in foster care.
And another thing that the open enrollment measure will do is it will remove the artificial cap on virtual charter schools, because right now we have a 3% cap that doesn't need to be there, because and we noticed that during COVID, that a lot of students who wanted to go to a virtual charter were prevented from doing so. So this amendment will remove that cap. Good. So children, again, are freely able to move in the brick and mortar, but they're also able to move freely into the virtual.
Oh, that's
because
cool.
Some kids do better, and maybe they have a job where they need to be working virtually and then go off to their job. So we want to be flexible.
A lot of families are struggling, and with the market the way it is, you need 2 to 3 incomes just to maintain a household. Mm-hmm. I think that's stellar. I have a young nephew whose son is in a virtual school right now because he'd like to work. Mm-hmm. And he has the ability to stay self-focused, and work.
That's
and that
great.
Just helps the household.
Yeah, because we have to remember, and this became very apparent during COVID also, that children are unique and they learn differently. Mm-hmm. So we can't expect to put them all in the same environment, a box, and teach them one way and expect them all to excel.
Yeah.
We just know that doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is recognize that they learn differently and allow them to freely move to the environment that matches their needs. Maybe they need to go faster. Maybe they need more help. Maybe they need to be challenged. So whatever needs they have, the parent will recognize those and be able to choose the learning environment.
Fantastic.
So with the open enrollment, they can stay within the public school system and choose any environment. But then for some parents, they don't want to be in the public school system. So then we have the school choice amendment. And with that, the parents can simply opt out of the public system and then ask for a portion of the money that would be spent on their child. The parent never touches it, but instead it goes to an account that the parent chooses, a nonprofit. The money goes to that nonprofit.
Okay.
And then the parent is able to direct how the money is spent.
Right.
But in the process of directing, they're able to customize to fill the needs of their child. So maybe their child needs special tutoring. Maybe they need education therapy with a speech impediment or a muscular or a movement situation. So a parent is able to then say, look, I have this $7,600 per year for my child. I'm going to then customize a portion for private school, a portion for a tutor on a Thursday afternoon, maybe some motor skills, maybe a piano lesson, and then they can also use the money for transportation from their home to the school. They can get a computer. Maybe it's a special computer the child needs. But whatever educational needs they have.
So for medically fragile or developmental disabilities where they need augmentation through a computer or a voice machine.
All of those sort of things. Because right now, actually, if you back up, school choice came about in large part because of parents of special needs children. They were dissatisfied with the services the student was or wasn't receiving in the public system. And they said, there has to be a better way for my child to get the education they need. So basically it evolved into school choice. And then now school choice is becoming universal, which means it's applicable for all children and available for them to choose. But for a lot of students that are in the public system right now and their needs are not being met, with school choice and having the parents be able to customize that $7,600, they will be able to get exactly the special needs services that will help them get to the point where they're learning fully, enjoying school. And so it'll help the students, and that's the whole point of this money. And the wonderful thing about this also is that each child will get $7,600 per year. And if the parents are frugal and for whatever reason they don't need to spend the full 76, whatever is remaining will flop to the next year.
Sweet.
So you could have 7,600 and maybe they only spend 6,000 a year with tuition, transportation, computer, then the extra will flop over. And so each year if they're not spending it all, the excess will flop. And maybe when they get to high school, the schooling is a little more expensive, so they'll have that reserve to use to pay. But for like a homeschooler, it's phenomenal. They'll have basically a bunch pouring over to the next year so that when the child completes high school, they'll have money left over in that account. They can then use that to go to an Oregon college, trade school, university, vocational. So we're really stretching all the possible value out of this money so that they can have a great K through 12 education and then also have the ability to go to a trade school, become a welder, pipe fitter, or go to Oregon State, become an engineer, whatever suits the learning needs of that child.
That's fantastic. You know, I'm always amazed at how little thought had been put into this until I met you, to be honest with you. But this had been tried, but these two amendments were kind of together and they failed before, right? And we had open enrollment, but we didn't have the choice. I mean, we had school choice, but not was it open enrollment?
No, we had open enrollment from 2012 to 2019 through the legislature.
Okay.
And then when I first did these, I did them as a combined open enrollment and school choice. We submitted them to the Secretary of State, and she threw them out on a technical rule. So then we pulled them apart, made them better as standalone, and then we submitted them again. We went through the whole process, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, the Oregon Supreme Court, and we came out of that process about the time that you and I met the first time. And then since then, we've been gathering signatures to get to the 160,000 that we need. And, you know, we've been working. We have wonderful volunteers, but it is a slow slog, and we'll get several signatures a day. But we are to the point now where we need to be at about 5,000 signatures a day to get enough signatures by June 30 to submit to the Secretary of State to get the measures on the ballot for November.
So before we end this podcast, we have to tell the people how to get their signature into this in the most practical way and the most simple way, because I think that's how we're going to do it. Okay.
Absolutely.
So what do you need from the listeners? What do you need from them?
So we have a website, letthemlearnoregon.com, and it's very simple for folks to go there, print out either a single signer or a 10-liner. So we have two different petition forms. The single signer is you print it out, sign it just for yourself, and mail it back. Okay. The 10-liner is available. You can still sign line one of that, but then you can go out and ask 9 friends to sign the remaining lines. Okay. And then you, as what is called the circulator, sign at the bottom. Okay. So there's two mechanisms. You can sign for yourself on the single signer, or you can print out the 10-liner and sign yourself and then go out and get other signatures.
So sign once. That's really key.
Yes, and you have to be an active registered voter for Oregon to sign. Now, you can have someone who isn't an active registered voter be the person collecting the signatures as the circulator. But the people that either sign the single signer or lines 1 through 10 on the 10-liner, they have to be active registered Oregon voters. Okay. And hopefully they'll print nicely. They have to sign it like they did when they registered to vote. And then they print the date and print their name and address. And I use the printed name and address to understand what the signature is. Right. Because if anybody signs their name like I do, nobody can read that.
Yeah, me too.
So we need
Doctor signature.
We need the printed part to be able to verify that the signature is actually legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to Let Them Learn, LetThemLearn.com.
LetThemLearnOregon.com.
Oregon. Oh, I missed the Oregon. LetThemLearnOregon.com. That's where you're going to find the petition for the single signature or the list that you might want to circulate.
Yes.
Okay. And then get that, mail it in. It has instructions there to mail it in, an address right on it.
On the back.
On the back. Okay.
Yes.
So just to give you an idea, because a couple times, I get a little foggy because of the chemo, right? And I'm like, how do I again? I know I've signed. I signed early on back in March. But I just want to circulate the thing.
Right.
So I can still circulate.
Yes, you can still go out and you can walk up and down your neighborhood. Okay. You could get a little table and be in front of the post office. You could basically go to farmers markets, gun shows, home and garden shows, any of those kind of things. And if it's on private property, you want to ask permission from the person who owns the property. But the wonderful thing is that people are very receptive to the idea.
Yeah.
Because again, children learn differently. Parents know the needs of their children, and education is so crucial to them. And we all want the children to get a good education. So when you present these to people and say, this will help all Oregon children get a good education, people are like, well, that makes wonderful sense. Yes, I want to sign.
Yeah.
So it's a very positive, hopeful message of let's make sure these kids can learn. Let them learn.
And for once, I'm liking something that isn't politically polarizing us. I really, you know me, that was my whole show, is not to polarize. Let's try to get a conversation together. And I love this because who doesn't love kids, grandkids, nieces and nephews, and who doesn't want them to be at their best?
Yes.
So Donna, you have had to overcome quite a bit of stuff to get to this point. Can you address that just for a minute, like what the effort has been for you? Because you're doing this on your own time, all of it.
Yes. So I'm retired now, and I thought I would be writing mystery novels and become the new, American Agatha Christie, or gardening or doing something. But that didn't turn out. So I'm working on this, and I've been doing this as a volunteer for free for at least 3 years now. And it's wonderful because being a lawyer and an accountant and all that was interesting. But this is what gets me up in the morning. This is so exciting. I don't know these kids. I'll probably never know these kids. But as a parent, I know how important education is. And I loved being in school. I was probably a geek. I loved homework. I have all these different degrees. So school was very exciting for me. And I know that it can be for other kids. But if they're in an environment that isn't welcoming, that isn't challenging, that isn't supportive, then these kids might just zone out. I mean, we can see that because Oregon has record high absenteeism.
Yes, it does.
And that's just devastating to me because every day they're not learning, they're going backwards.
Yeah.
And so it's so sad to see that. So what this movement is trying to do is help parents be able to identify their children's needs and then choose the learning environment, because we want all kids in Oregon to succeed.
Yeah.
We've done internal polling and to try to find out what sort of things are of a concern for Oregonians. And the two top items were crime and homelessness, which is devastating for Oregon. And then you have to think, okay, why do we have a lot of crime and homelessness? And I think it's because we have a system in education where these children are not learning. They're passed from grade to grade to grade and then pushed out the door with no high school graduation standards.
And very little skills.
Yes, and so they graduate, but they can't read, they can't write, they don't know how to do math situations. So when they get out, they're finding a lot of frustration. They can't get a job. They're not prepared for college or a trade school situation, so they're frustrated. So that is lending itself to them going into crime, drugs, and that leads to homelessness. So if we're trying to solve the crime and homelessness and drug problem, let's go back to a cause, which is if our kids aren't getting a good education and set up for life then to succeed, it's no wonder that we're having high drugs and crime. So let's go back and use the tax dollars. We all pay taxes.
Yeah.
A portion of those go toward education. According to the Oregon Constitution, that pot of money for education is for all Oregon children.
Right.
It's not just for little Johnny over here in a public school.
Right.
But not little Sally over here in a private school. It's for all Oregon kids. Yeah. So these two measures will allow this money, the same pot of money, doesn't increase the pot at all through taxes, lets that same pot of money flow to where the children are going and supporting the choice of the parents, which again supports the choice of the child to learn better.
I think an analogy for our listeners would be this. You have certain places that you like to shop, and you like to shop there because the quality is better. And the quality is, you know where to find things because it's organized. It has things that you need. It has things that you use on a regular basis. And I'm not naming stores intentionally, okay? And you just go there and you skip a lot of other stores who are not providing those things. This is no different here. And when I think of youth and I think of the whole purpose of propagating the future, I think that if we don't give the base understanding of education, and I'm talking math, and I'm talking science, and I'm talking literacy, and I'm talking speaking about things like grammar, punctuation, how to form a sentence, what are the parts of a sentence, what is vocabulary. Having a vocabulary bigger than the F word in this culture is a big deal. And it puts people in a position for employment, for community action, for all of those things that you're talking about in the future. That's why education, I'm not talking about the education that is values-based, much education. I'm talking about the kind of education that launches people to become curious learners, to begin to ask questions, to practice knowing who they are and what they're going to be about. Does that make sense? It moves people forward. And right now, I just feel like if just like in the marketplace for stores, if a school knows that there's a higher bar to be gathered for them to educate their youth, they'll spend less time on the things that parents should be teaching or the church should be teaching or social workers should be teaching and spend more time on the actual education. Am I wrong here?
Well, no, it's basically it should be that the child gets a full quality education of the basics. And what we're finding in the public schools for Oregon is our proficiency is at record lows. So we have a situation where only 3 out of 10 children are proficient in math and science, which means 7 of those 10 kids are not proficient in math and science. They're not able to add. They're not able to understand scientific rules and how nature works and things like that. And then for reading, which is crucial for a future, only 4 out of 10 students are, which means 6 out of 10 kids are not able to read. We don't do multiplication tables. We don't do cursive. We don't do spelling tests anymore. From what I understand, I'm not a teacher, but a lot of these kids are plunked in front of a Chromebook.
Yeah.
And for me, that would be terrible because I'm very not tech. And so I'm happy when the computer turns on. But by having just interaction with the computer, it has to be dulling down their sense of curiosity. They're not able to raise their hand and say, hey, well, what about this? And I understand that's for that, but what about this? And why is it this way? And okay, now I understand. There's none of that curiosity, the discovery, the interaction with either their teacher or their classmates if they're zombied out on a Chromebook. So that is not the solution for all children, but yet we put in the public system all these kids in a box and expect them all to learn that way. And so it's no wonder that kids are absent. It's no wonder that they're not learning.
Yeah.
What we need to do is take away that box and let children freely move. And it won't cause a mass exodus out of the public school.
No.
School choice programs across the country for the last 30 years have been studied, and only 2% of students end up leaving public schools, and they only take 1% of the dollars. So it's not defunding public schools. It's not causing a mass exodus. But what it is doing is empowering parents with the choice. And having the choice lets the schools know, ooh, we better up our game. We better respond to the needs of the parents, listen to them at school board meetings, deliver a better product to the students so that the students remain in the public school. Because having the power in the parent to leave is enough to organically basically kick in the butt the public schools to improve. And for the first time, all schools in the state will compete against each other.
Beautiful.
They will up their game. They will be more innovative, deliver a better product, distinguish themselves from the school down the street.
Yeah.
And parents will have a better choice, a more fulfilling opportunity for choosing the school. And another thing that it does that people don't recognize is just as important as it is for students to transfer to the learning environment, it's equally important for teachers to be able to freely choose the teaching environment. We have wonderful teachers in Oregon.
Yes, we do.
A lot of them, though, are trapped. And they think their only option is a public school. That's not the case with school choice. They're able to go to any public school or a charter, or there'll be more private schools, so there'll be more opportunity.
And
or
the
these
pay
teachers,
will be better.
the pay will increase, but the teachers also could start their own school. Or if they wanted to scale back their time, they could just be a tutor or a part-time teacher. So the opportunities for teachers will go up exponentially, which will allow them to have better pay and feel more valued.
I like that idea. Imagine yourself, maybe 26, 27-year-old in your early 30s, whatever, and you decided to have a baby, right? And you just want to teach part-time. You would like to spend more time with your baby than you did in the classroom. You could tutor for 4 hours a day.
Yes,
Right.
and at your own convenient
at your
schedule.
own convenient schedule, and make sure that you're with little Johnny or whatever, which, by the way, will be bringing up better future students in the classroom because they'll know you and they'll have a response to you as the caregiver instead of strangers raising your babies.
Right.
So I see the positive side of that, too.
Right. And it's wonderful, too, because there have been school choice programs going back 100 years, but primarily it's been in the last 30 years. And they've studied those programs extensively, and they keep coming up with the conclusion based on the evidence that there are two main benefits for school choice. One is it raises the academic standards and performance of all students, not just the ones in public and not just the ones in private, but all of them. And that's because of competition. Each school then is now innovating and improving their product to compete for the same students. And so everybody is upping their game. So it helps all students, wherever they are, academically and learn better. And that's, again, the point. But it also saves taxpayers money. And that's easy to understand if you think right now the taxpayers are spending at least $17,000 on a child in a public school.
Per person,
per child. With school choice, those children that utilize it will only be costing taxpayers $7,600. So there's a huge savings for taxpayers there. But aside from the money, because the money is not the focus here, the focus is making sure the dollars we do have are effectively used for these children. And with school choice, we have transparency because now wherever the child goes, the money goes.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to see the effectiveness of these dollars. With school choice and the parents that are opting out of the public system and taking those $7,600 with them, they're able to customize, and the results for those kids are usually equal to or superior to what's happening in the public school for that same child. And isn't that the point here?
Yeah.
To make sure that all of these kids get the best education. And so if we're able to do it through school choice at basically half of the cost, that's a win for the taxpayer, but more importantly, it's a win for the child. And that's what the focus is, making sure the dollars that we have are effectively used to help educate these kids, wherever the child is.
I think COVID gave us a little bigger window into education. As a foster parent at the time, I was online with my son, and I watched the low, and one of the best schools in Salem, okay, level of actual academics. My young man was a brilliant mathematician, and he was in special ed of math. You know how I knew he was a brilliant mathematician? He was able, when he was 6 years old, to take his blind mom on a bus to KCI Clinic and know exact route, exact amount of change for the bus every single time for years.
Wow, that's
until
wonderful.
He got in trouble. So I have empirical evidence, right? And I like that. So I said, dude, you were able to do that. I expect more. Guess what happened to his math scores? They began to soar. You see what I'm saying? But he wasn't challenged in high school at all. And I was very disappointed. The total amount of time, I think a week, that he spent in high school during COVID was less than 2 hours in a classroom with a teacher teaching. And most of the time, the teacher was showing a video. It was absolutely disgusting. And I love the school, and I love these people. So it's not anything against anybody. This was a really good school, and it's one of the better ones in Salem. I don't know what other people's experience, but I bet if we did a poll, we would go, oh, yeah. And COVID also illuminated the parents who would maybe blame the school for their child's behavior, because now the parent was stuck with that little monster they created. And they had to experience them. And I think they were a lot more caring about the teachers and about the administrators and about school after that. Plus, people were just glad to be free to go back to school. So I believe public schools will flourish with these amendments. I believe people want to be in school. I believe they want to be with their peers. And I believe they want to excel. And they want to be curious. I've noticed as an educator, 27 years educator, that students are less curious. They ask less questions now than they did 27 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
And that's a shame, because that's one mechanism
sad.
that expands their minds and their horizons and their engagement.
There's no curiosity because, like you said, they're involved in a Chromebook or a whatever, and they can ask Google what they want. But what they don't understand is Google is biased. Google's being written in a biased sort of way. So they're not going to get the full scope of possibility of answer or possibly even the truth. I tried it yesterday on something because I was anticipating coming here. I was looking for something. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to try it. I was looking for what is the meaning of an upside down flag. Now, I already know the meaning of an upside down flag as a teacher. I know the history behind it. But you know what Google reported it to be? Something of a current from 2020 on behavior when really it was the flag was upside down on a ship to show distress. Either it is going down or being attacked. Help. That's what it was for. And Wikipedia had a little bit about that, but Google itself didn't. It just had the political jargon. So that tells me that they can Google all they want, but they're not going to get the truth. And maybe if they go down, maybe, 25 layers, I was able to, if I went page 2, page 3, page 4, now find the truth. But most students aren't that curious.
And what's unfortunate, too, is they're not taught how to learn.
Yeah.
They're not taught how to, formulate a question, present a hypothesis, what they think the answer would be, and then do research. And do research that's covering the full spectrum, not just an echo chamber of research that is going to give you the answer you think you want.
What their itching ears want to hear.
Yeah, what is the entire spectrum? And then be able to discern through that what they want to conclude. If the question is this a good thing? Well, they need to have the full spectrum of information to make an informed decision. And if we aren't teaching kids how to do that, then they're not going to have that skill when they get out. So they won't be as successful as a college student or at a trade school, but they also won't be as successful in life because they won't be able to figure out something. Maybe they're going to be presented later on with a problem. If they don't have the skill set on how to research and find the answer to that, they might be just stumped. And that's very sad to see.
It is sad. It's socially delaying them, emotionally delaying them, and mentally delaying them, creating a lot of what we would call developmentally delayed, typically developing people. Does that make sense? So they become atypical. They're not typically developing. So what I'm noticing is that when I start a classroom, I start them off with Socratic questioning. So they have 6 different ways to ask questions besides what, when, where, how. They have ways to ask questions, and they love it. They're like, wow, this is cool. No one has ever taught me this before. And the few that were homeschooled, private school. They had been taught. And I remember when I learned Socratic questioning, I pondered back, why is it that I wasn't curious before now? Because I was in my 30s when I went back to school. And all of a sudden, it just dawned on me. When I was little, I kept hearing, when I asked a question, stop talking. Why is the grass green? Why is this? Why is, because little kids do that at about age 4 or 5, 6, like that, and we say, stop it. And what they mean, parents mean, is stop it for now. I'm busy. But what they're conveying, don't ask questions. And then they're conveying something later. A child spills something. Why did you do that? I'm 3. Motorically, I have no function on my hands. They don't know that, right? They go, I don't know. You better know. So do you hear the mixed message? You better know and stop asking questions. It's just a wicked thing that's happened in our culture because parents are so busy trying to get them to soccer that they stop them from being curious.
Or just engaging in play.
Yeah.
Kids can learn a lot just through play.
The best.
And I can remember being, 100 years ago when I was in public school, being out for recess and falling off the monkey bars and, getting kicked in the head in the middle of a football game or whatever, and just being out there. And, it was great. You're interacting with other kids. You're having fun. You're getting some exercise. And you're also kind of, as my grandmother would say, getting your wiggles out.
Yeah.
So you could be outside, fresh air, and then come back in and be able to focus on the math class or the history class or whatever. And it seems like there isn't a lot of play
wiggle time. Yeah,
in school.
Not a lot of wiggle time. I agree. We've actually made a school very similar school system very similar to prison system. We ding them in, we ding them to chow, we ding them to yard, and we ding them out. It's just we've really taught youth how to do time and very little how to do education and how to learn. And my goal in what I'm teaching is to teach people how to think and not what to think. And I'm not sure that that's our current system broadly. Okay, I'm hoping that's what all of you as teachers out there, I hope you're listening. But teaching a student what to think just makes them a little mini you. But teaching them how, and then having them come back with a curious question that maybe you don't have the answer to. I love it when a student, I don't know. I think you should investigate that, and I'll do the same, and I'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll do that. Okay.
And it's nice that they can see that the adult in the room doesn't have the answer.
Not all
and that
of
that's
them
okay.
Can't.
It's okay not to know what's the next step
That's right.
then is to go find out.
That's right. It's
That's
not
important.
acceptable to not come back with the information. Not acceptable at all. And then to say, okay, and this is where you can find it. Not just, and this is my opinion. I went home and, formed my opinion, but this is where you can find it. So I have students asking me at the end of class, so can I have that citation they had? Because they want to go look it up. So I love it.
That's
it
great.
makes me happy. Yeah. So we want people to go to the link. Say the link again. So
LetThemLearnOregon.com.
Okay.
And there are the two forms. We have two measures, and each measure has a single signer and the 10-liner. And you can print those out, or there's a landing page where you fill in your information, and I will put packets together and mail it out to them.
Okay.
So that if they don't have access to a printer, just let us know your mailing, your name and mailing address. We'll put a packet out in the mail to you.
Did you happen to bring some of those today?
I
with
did.
You?
Yay! So this is our
Okay.
what we call our volunteer starter packet, and it has all the information that someone would need to get
hold
going.
that up to the camera. There we go. And there
So
we go.
this has instructions on how to be a signature gatherer, which is not difficult. You basically just walk up to someone and say, "May I tell you about school choice?" And they say yes. And then you say, "Are you a registered Oregon voter?" And they say yes. Well, we have these two measures, and we have 10-liners for them. So here is
Beautiful.
an example of one of the 10-liners.
I want one of those today.
Okay. The person just signs here under the word signature, and they sign as they did when they registered to vote, which nobody remembers. I don't remember how I registered. So you use your best penmanship in your typical signature, and then you fill out the rest of this, which is date, printed name, address. And that is all helpful to us to be able to decipher someone's signature, because if they sign their name like I do, nobody can read that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we then need nice, clear printing of the person's name and address
Beautiful.
so we can verify, because we have the obligation to verify that everybody that signs these is an active registered
Right.
Oregon voter.
And haven't signed yet.
Right. And
Right.
if they can't remember, because the process is sort of tortured to go, there's a phase 1 and then there
Yeah.
was a delay and then now we're in phase 2. So I say, if you're sure that you signed it, don't sign again. But if you're just not sure whether you did or didn't, sign it again, and we'll catch it when we go through and verify
Good.
these, and we'll
Okay.
cross off any
Better
duplicates.
to have more signatures than less.
Right, and then we
Beautiful.
cross off the duplicates.
Beautiful.
So that you, as the circulator, would fill in these, or you can sign for yourself on line 1 and then fill in the rest.
As an example, yeah.
And then down here, after you've gathered all the signatures, you signature, date, and print name and address here.
beautiful.
And that means, yes, you saw all these people because you asked them, are they registered? You asked them if they wanted to sign, and then you watched them sign. And then you sign down here. And then all the
Verifying.
people have to do is mail just the 10-liners back to us, and
Beautiful.
the address is right on the back.
Right there. Perfect.
And this has the actual measure language too, because when you're out gathering,
yes.
you have to have the measure language, because in case someone says, well, I'm interested in this, but before I sign, I want to read it. Okay, here you go. Here it is.
Which I hope they do.
They do.
I hope they
yeah, and
walk
it's only
away.
2.5
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah.
And I wrote it, and I tried not to be too lawyerly.
Yeah.
But what we did in writing both of these measures is, because they're constitutional, there's narrow guardrails within which we have to draft. So we put all the requirements that we wanted in this to give protection to parents, to help the parents, and to make it the most transparent as possible. So the words in here are crucial, and these words will then go into the Oregon Constitution, and they have the protections and the descriptions of these measures in them. Once they pass, the legislature will do what's called implementation, which is they get the program going through rulemaking, but what the legislature cannot do is change the words or the intent. So the words say a parent is free to choose, for example, on the school choice, to opt their child out, to choose a nonprofit who will administer the account. When the money goes from the state to the account, it legally stops being government money. And that severs the ability of the state to put strings on it. And then we put in additional layers of protection that say the government can't tell the homeschool parent or the private school what they choose on curriculum, education practices, teacher qualifications, so that it allows the homeschool parent and the private school to operate in the best manner that they feel for the child, the manner and the focus they want, free from government intrusion and regulation.
Beautiful.
And the whole point of that is that we always want to go back to empowering parents to choose the learning environment.
That's right.
So we have 4 distinct environments: a public district, a public charter, private school, homeschool. We want to keep those distinct so it enables the parent to choose fully among those. If we turned everything into the same thing, then the parent's choice is gone. Yeah. And then it handicaps the child too. Yeah. So this measure will protect the uniqueness of private schools and homeschoolers from government control. So we have protections in there, and then we basically are making sure with these 2 measures that the parent is able to choose. And again, these are written from the perspective of a parent, because I was a parent and wrote these, and as simple as possible, without a bunch of jargon, without a bunch of technicalities and computer whatnot. So it's what choice does a parent want to make? And then they make that choice, and the child goes to that environment. The money follows the child. The child learns. The child prospers. And Oregon, as a result, has less crime, less homelessness, less drug problems, and more productive, happy students. Because the happiness component is missing too. Yeah. Because if the child's learning in an environment where it's dreary, or they aren't, or the class is disruptive, or they're just not learning, it's not a good experience for the child.
Yeah.
So we want to uplift the child and give them a better learning experience, and then have them sail into their future with a skill set, with knowledge, with curiosity. Yeah. They can start a business, they can go to college, they can go to trade school, they can become an employee somewhere. Whatever that child dreams of, we want to make that available to them.
Yeah. I think now, has this been done in another state? I was going to ask.
Yes. So there are currently 33 states that have some form of school choice.
Nice.
And in all of those states, they have done it through their legislatures, which means those 2, the House and the Senate in those states, have come together, passed legislation, the governors have signed that.
Beautiful.
And that's been wonderful. In Oregon, we have a different situation. There have been legislators who've tried to get it in Oregon and not been able to get it off the shelf and talked on the floor, and I don't know the political process, but it's just a non-starter in our legislature. So Oregon has been prevented from having it, but that's not fair to the Oregon kids.
Right.
So we know that legislatively across the country, it's been done. We can't do it legislatively in Oregon.
Right.
We have to do it through the Constitution,
and
through
the
citizens. So the option that we have here is citizen constitutional initiatives.
Beautiful.
So we, as moms, dads, grandparents, teachers, constitutional lawyers, we banded together. We looked at legislation across the country, modeled programs. We took the crucial language, we put it into these 2 measures, ran it through the state system, and now we're out gathering signatures. The language in these 2 will go into the Oregon Constitution, which is the superior the law of Oregon. And it basically will bypass the legislature and the governor. Beautiful. And that's important because we want to make sure that these are lasting programs, and they're protective programs, and they're beneficial programs.
That's right. And governor coming in can't,
right. So we want to strip this of politicalness, of partisanness.
I love that.
This is just to help the kids.
Yeah.
So it's not a political movement. It's not private versus public. It's not Republican versus Democrat. And it polls well. Yeah. It polls in Oregon and nationally of all stripes. Yeah. Republicans, Democrats, independents in the 60s up into the 77%.
Again, I think it's because of COVID. I do. I think it's because people saw the problem.
Well, and parents saw that with their child.
Let people know again how to get a hold of you.
We also have, this is our little business card, letthemlearnoregon.org. FayDay.com. And when people are out gathering signatures on the 10-liners, I always ask somebody afterward, will you do me a favor? And they always say yes. I say, would you take this card and take a picture of it with your phone and text it to all your Oregon contacts?
Beautiful.
Because we know certain people, and if we tell those people and then they tell 5 and those 5 tell 5, it'll ricochet across Oregon. Because as moms and dads and grandparents, we don't have a lot of money. We're doing this as volunteers. We're trying to help Oregon kids, so we don't have the money to advertise extensively. So we are relying on everybody else to pass the word. Let them learn Oregon.com.
Beautiful.
And
I'll
they can
put
go out
that
and
on
get
my 5,900 people.
Good.
Today.
And then we also have lots of literature prepared already that has summaries of these too. So people don't have to wonder, what does this do? What's it's called?
Right.
What's the benefit? And the two main benefits are that it helps academically all students and it saves taxpayers money.
I love it. Helping students and saving taxpayers money. Who doesn't want that?
I don't know. Who
so
wouldn't?
If somebody wants to engage you like I have on my podcast or on their radio show or on their TV show, how do they get a hold of Donna?
Donna at letthemlearnoregon.com. That's my email, and I'll respond. I come to wherever they are. I can't drive because of my motorcycle accident, shattered my leg, but I'm very willing to come to any group and speak because, again, we need to spread the word around Oregon. We have a huge hurdle of about 130,000 signatures to gather.
43 days.
Yeah, by June 30th, and that's fast approaching.
Yes, it is.
But we can do this because when people learn about it, they're excited about it. And they say, well, that makes sense. I want my child to get the best education. I want my grandchild. Oh, I don't have kids in Oregon, but I want future high school graduates to have a good education so they can be the next teachers and police and bus drivers.
Because I have a business and I have, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here, Donna.
Absolutely.
I absolutely do.
Has the hour already come to an end?
It has.
Wow,
it's
that was
ridiculous.
fast.
I know. So I want to see what happens after this when this comes into fruit. Okay.
Yes.
And we should get on again and then talk about the implementation process. Okay.
Absolutely.
I think we really want that, especially for people who would like to start their own school. Okay, that's going to be key. I think you're going to be key in that in terms of consulting, my guess.
Well, and then there's also the opportunity because the nonprofits will be administering the accounts. So entrepreneurs could say, hey, I want to start one of these nonprofits. So they'll go through the state attorney general and Department of Justice registration process, and then they can be advertising to future parents to say, I will be, as the nonprofit, the one that administers your account. And the wonderful thing about that is they're invested in the success of the program.
That's right.
They're not trying to kill the program or stop parents. They're trying to make it as available as possible. And what the nonprofits will do is they'll often use an online program that's very transparent and gives all these choices to parents to choose, makes it very simple. 3-ring binders from Staples and a computer from Dell and private school at XYZ school. They just go through and check it, hit the word go, and all that's taken care of. And then their child goes to school and learns tremendously, and everybody's better for it.
I love it. I love it. Donna, thank you for being with me today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for just powering through this and being a champion. You are a hope warrior for students, and you really do present that wholeness that parents and communities can have by having educated young people. So
well, it's not just me. There's about 1,400 of us out there. Everybody's wonderful. Everybody's excited by this. All these volunteers are doing it on their own time because they love the children. They want the success of these students to basically find the environment that works for them. So it's a very positive movement to be involved with, too. It is a positive movement.
I want to get one of those T-shirts, too. So are we selling the T-shirts?
I don't sell them. I was giving them out, and I'm running low. But
okay, I need a T-shirt.
Okay.
I need to. If I go out and do that, I want to be wearing that shirt.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Whenever we're out in mass, we have these shirts, and they're not a fashion statement, but they are very noticeable, which is nice. They make a presentation.
They're perfect.
And they're also the color of a lot of the workers. So if you see the highway workers or whatever, we're always high-fiving because we always look the same. We're all out there working.
We're out there kicking booty. I love it. Thank you, Donna.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.